So hello everyone and welcome to the final session of the event, the Q&A session. So without further ado, let's get going. So Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure. Let's start with Gretchen's question. I'm just going to go down my list chronologically, but we can do this in whatever order we want. At 9 a.m. Okay, so I guess that would be in between Lisa's and Kirsty's. But I think anyone can answer this one. How would you handle the situation where the facts you've gathered for a client are disconfirming to their family lore? For example, in my own research, I have found at least 11 pieces of information that were completely and ridiculously untrue. I found it funny. Others may not.
I actually corresponded with her privately as well. And
okay.
Yeah, I've had some difficulties. In fact, one of my first research projects sort of connected with a networking client of mine. I found out that basically the lady I was doing the family history for, her father had murdered his parents. Super awkward. And I was like, oh my gosh, what on earth am I going to do with this? And I just was like, no, I'm just going to leave it. I'll put the dates of death there and just leave it. And if he asks a question, we'll just kind of roll with it. My sort of advice with that one is just, if you're going to produce a report as a genealogist, you need to go, this is why I think you're wrong. Slightly different scenario, obviously, with the murdering grandparents thing. But this is why I think it's wrong, but also provide all of your sources. Because if you can prove it's wrong, it's fine. If you're kind of questioning it, maybe get somebody else to look at it. Because if you're sort of not super sure, then I would say get someone else to look at it. But if you are super, super sure, just put all of your references in there. They've asked you to look at it. They've asked you to do the research. Put your research back and go, this is why.
One that I commonly...
Karen, do you want to address that from a DNA perspective? And then Gretchen, you can follow up with Kirsty.
Okay.
Sure. So one thing that I've learned, like I didn't start out doing this, but I've learned that when you're working with a DNA client, you have to ask them ahead of time. If I find something that is inconsistent with your documented family tree, would you want to know about it?
Yes.
And then that will inform you of whether you should or should not let them know about it. And honestly, for some people, for me, as I mentioned, I have an adoption in my family tree. And to me, the heritage of my adoptive grandparents is as important as the heritage of my biological grandparents.
Right.
So people still want to know about the lives that touch them and that inform their lives, even if it's not consistent with what they originally perceived to be the story. So getting consent up front and then recognizing that, what your client wants is also important.
Okay, Gretchen, do you want to ask your follow-up piece?
So I did quite a few DAR applications and was volunteering to do the research. And the most difficult thing to deal with was someone coming in who was fairly old, and they would have these pages. I know he was in the revolution, and you can't prove it. And you're like, you want to scream, he wasn't even in the country. Those are the ones where you don't really want to tell them because you're going to break their heart that, no, you don't have a patriot. But personally, what mine were that were funny, see if anybody else, my Jewish grandparents, great-grandparents, are buried in the Catholic cemetery over in Cincinnati. I mean, they were not. My mother made up so much stuff. But I don't know if you run into this in the UK or Ireland. When I research my family, going down into the mountains of Kentucky, records are very spotty or absolutely false.
Yes.
My
100% yes.
Oh, good, because my grandfather fathered a child 3 years after he died. And
Yep.
that was on the legal birth certificate.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we see that a lot. We see the, I think I mentioned this earlier on when I was speaking, but about the whole name change thing where it's just like completely made up. Yeah, it's an issue, and I think that's the challenge that we have, whether it's as genealogist or professional, whatever. It's difficult to kind of go, well, you know, can I actually accept this document? Well, if it's a legal document, you have to. So we've had birth certificates that I know are a total load of rubbish, garbage, call it what you will, but because they're a legal document, that's the law. It's really difficult.
Fantastic. Daniel, do you want to ask our next question?
Yes. Okay. Judging by the timestamp on this one, this would be for Karen. From Lauren Newby. What tools do you swear by? Websites, recording mediums, methods, etc. I appreciate this will vary a lot.
So yeah, I think everybody should answer, all of us should answer this one, because there's going to be different answers based on what you work with. So my main thing as a DNA researcher, DNA painter, to me is an indispensable tool. Johnny Pearl is a hero to me. His tools, I use them all the time for DNA stuff. Ancestry, of course, I mean, I'll hear IgG practitioners, you know, there's like arguments of whether Ancestry should be used for this, but there is no greater central repository for so many different documents that are accessible. And then for Hispanic and Latin American research, I really like Family Search as well. They have more records. Some of them are not indexed, but that's another one that I really like. And then for documentation, Google Workspace is very important to learn. You can manage access to resources that you're creating there. So you can add people and take people away from the resources that they need to access. And it's pretty secure. So you can enable two-factor authentication. And that's an important aspect of keeping things private as well. So those are the ones that come to mind immediately for me.
And Johnny Pearl is one of our ambassadors for the Hidden Branch too.
Love him. Just love him.
Me too.
Shannon, Kirsty, do you have some favorites?
Oh, well, Karen covered a lot of them, because I do a lot of genetic genealogy research as well. So I won't touch on those, but a few others that I have found helpful. I like and have for decades to do mind mapping, especially when I am diagramming out problems or doing research. And there are some really nice and even free templates online that you can create really nice mind maps to kind of put all of your thoughts into one paper and see how everything connects, how things connect to each other. Another one that I like is I use Google Drive for a lot of things. And a lot of the volunteer places I'm at use Google Drive. And a lot of times they use it because it's cross-platform. So no matter if you're on a Mac or a PC or what, you can all read the same documents. You don't have to worry about conversions. So those are two things that I think help make my life as a researcher a little bit easier. And I won't get into like state specific things, because I could tell you a lot about Virginia, but
I was going to say exactly the same about UK stuff. Oh my God, I could like wax lyrical for another 40 minutes, but we don't have that. But yeah, there's a load of stuff over here that's like free, volunteer led transcription stuff. I think actually maybe Family Wise has a blog going out maybe next week about it, so maybe like look out for that. But there's a load of stuff that is free and really easily searchable. But yeah, I think it just, as Shannon said, in terms of like Virginia or wherever we're looking for, there's a load of stuff. And I think the thing that I would say that I don't think any of us, my bad, has mentioned is Cindy's List. So if people don't know about Cindy's List, there's lots of people nodding. Lovely. If people don't know about Cindy, CYNDI's list, that she has got an absolute metric ton of stuff in terms of like different resources in different areas. So definitely look at that in terms of specific to location or whatever. So yeah, that's my advice on that one.
Okay, cool. Is it my turn, Daniel? I don't remember.
Oh, hang on. Lisa's just ended. So one of the questions came from Martha Faust. Martha, would you like to hop on and then ask this one?
Was that?
Hi, well, this was for Shannon, and I found the you talked a little bit about doing community work, and part of that was an assisted living center, and was wondering, did you sort of start with a general presentation to everybody, and then how did you coordinate time, or how far back did you go per individual? And I know that this is like volunteer work. What I'm liking about this idea is to help me increase my research capability.
So I have two different ways I've done this in the past. The previous place I lived, I just went in and offered my services, and we had a sign-up sheet, and the director of the assisted living facility essentially said, I'll give you 3 hours once a week, and I did half an hour sessions with anybody who signed up. So they knew I was going to be there on Tuesdays, the first and the third weekend of the week of the month, and that was my time, and I had space. And sometimes people would just drop by if nobody's necessarily signed up, or something happened and they couldn't make it. I always had people who just wanted to come and sit and listen to the research that was going on. And now the one that I'm involved with here where I am in Northern Virginia, there's I don't know what to call it. There are 17 assisted living facilities, all under the same ownership, all over the Northern Virginia area. And they had started a university for their residents, where different professionals and professors from local universities and colleges and people from the local communities were coming in to give informational lectures. There was like a lecture every day. And they asked me to come in once a month and do a 1-hour presentation on anything genealogical.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, yeah, it was really fun. And then I would stay for an extra hour to answer any questions or to give advice on research or things like that. And so that has turned, I didn't know how well it was going to go, but I loved it. The residents loved it. I made some really neat friends there, because people who see you every week for 8 months, they love coming back and talking to you. And I had everything from people who had been in the United States since the Mayflower to people who were first generation Americans, and to immigrants. So I had sometimes, really put my thinking cap on to try to help them solve those genealogical problems. Or I'd say, I don't know, but when I come back next month, I'll do some research on my own and try to figure it out. Right.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So those are two different ways you can approach that.
Thank you. And by the way, I just have to really quickly say, go Hoosiers. Woo! I graduated from there.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. The next question I'm seeing is from Heather that I added for her. So she couldn't find Q&A, but we are going to ask it anyway. We got you, Heather. My question is, how do you transition from volunteering to asking for money for work? Mainly genetic genealogy, she adds at the end. Any thoughts?
Should I do this one? Okay. Well, I will say, so I'm going to give an IGG specific answer because although I could also talk a little bit about genetic genealogy. So when I started our small business, well, me and my colleague Tracy Boyle and Harmony Volmer, we really thought about calling it Coast to Coast Investigative Genetic Genealogy Services. But then we decided that we shouldn't limit ourselves to only investigative cases, and we should take on genetic genealogy clients as well. So adoption, unknown parentage, things like that. And I think that having legitimacy of being people who work on investigative cases, people are more likely to seek us out for their adoption and unknown parentage events as well, because they know that we have the skills. They've seen us in the news, they've seen us touching all of these different cases. And so we're very trusted in the field, I believe. So that's one part of it, is just having the legitimacy to back up your claims about what you can perform. And then also be able to deliver what you promise to them, let them know that you're going to be delivering them a report, or what the work product will be that you deliver to them. For IGG cases, I will just share with you all that it's police officers and law enforcement agencies and coroners, they do not have deep pockets. They are not, the money is not there to even pay you, really. So that's why I kind of said that I think that the money in genetic genealogy, or genealogy in general, comes from other things: education, tourism, and media. So finding your niche in one of those areas will probably net you more pay, more living work than trying to get money out of police agencies, because they barely have the money to pay the people that already work there. They certainly don't have more money than that. So that's just my opinion, but it is based on years of experience, but I'll let others weigh in as well.
You're lucky that you're even paid by the police force, because we're not. So we work with the police, we work with hospitals, we work with councils here in the UK, and we offer that service for free. And we offer that because we can hopefully sort out the estate and sort out all the houses, cars, whatever it is, or financial estates afterwards. But sometimes we're working for nothing. So, the fact they even might pay you is amazing.
I think a lot of times there are a lot of people that are willing to do this work for free, investigative genetic genealogy work for free. So it would be hard to find somebody that's willing to pay a lot for it.
I don't think it's even paying a lot. I think it's the fact that and I'll look at the Zoom room, if we are looking at being professionals, we should be charging whoever we are. If we've got skills that people can actually utilize, we should be charging. I don't charge a huge amount. I know I don't charge enough, but at the same time, it's like we should be charging something rather than the freebies that people are offering sort of behind the Facebook or, whatever else seems, because our skills are valuable. So why are we not charging?
That's very true. Very true.
So I'd like to add just a couple of things as a person with a genealogy and a genetics background. Yeah. I actually do for my personal business, because it goes back to what I said in my presentation. Some other people have multiple layers of marketing yourself. So a lot of my clients who want me to do genetic work for them come from either they've read a book or an article that I've written, or they've seen me present on genetic genealogy somewhere and then have taken my information and contact me. And what I've developed over the last 10 years is basically what do you need me to help you do? If it's a 3-hour consultation to sit down and go through your results with you and explain what they mean, that's one price. If it's I am, adopted or have an estrangement or an unknown parentage situation in my family tree, well, now we're talking about doing genetic genealogy, investigative type work, and that's going to be on a per hour basis. These are, regular type contract. So as far as, charging and how you do that, I think a lot of people start out lower priced until they build up their confidence. And as you build up your confidence and your experience, you should expect, and your clients should expect, those prices to raise, because you a lot of people are making a living at this, and it should be, you should be able to pay bills, at least the bottom line with what you're charging. You know, you should not be going into debt doing this.
Now I was tagged earlier on in a Facebook post. It was a family history job. It wasn't difficult. It was pretty easy actually. And I was tagged into a local sort of Facebook group just about, I don't know, 20 miles, 30 kilometers down the road. And I was like, oh, I know where this is going to go. I totally get where this is going to go. And there was somebody posting, oh, here's the 1901 census, here's the 1911 census. Oh, they don't have access to the 1921. Yes, because you're not a professional genealogist, so you don't have access to that stuff. So somebody tagged me and I was just like, hi, if you want me to help you out, here's my email. She has actually emailed, which I was genuinely quite surprised actually, because I was like, I thought it would just be like shut down, blah, blah, blah. But it's all that kind of, I think a lot of people want what we have to offer free. I'm like you, Shannon, and I'm sure Lisa as well, done with that. My skills are super important. People say, oh, yeah, well, I can access Ancestry and find my past. Well, congratulations, go and use those then. Because you clearly can't access them in a way that I can, because I've got skills that you don't have, and that's why you're asking me. So yeah, difficult one. But I think people don't want to pay. I often find people say, well, how much do I have to pay to have your services? Well, if you had a plumber that you were asking to come and fix a plumbing problem, would they know what it was going to cost? Probably not. So I would say, well, I don't know what your issue is. So, what's the problem? What issue do you need me to resolve? Oh, well, I just need to know your price brackets. Well, I don't know what you want, so I can't quote you yet. And I think people still, this is where we're at for Careers Day today, but still don't actually think this is a profession.
I agree, Kirsty. Absolutely. There's still people that don't see it as a profession, that, oh, well, you can just help me. It's no big deal.
Yeah, give me some assistance.
Yeah.
I'll mention also, if you are charging for your work, being transparent about your pricing might help you not only more clients, because they know, they can know how much something might cost. Of course, that doesn't work in every case because you might not know what they need, but it also helps other genetic genealogists I keep on being genetic genealogy specific, but it helps other people to know what you're charging, to sort of set the market and sort of set the expectation that you are charging for it. So being transparent is probably important.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, certainly from what I've found in the last 10, 11 years that I've been in business, is I always say to people, tell me what you want and I'll quote it. And they want a price bracket. They want a price list that's going to be online. Well, like I say, if you've got a plumbing issue, they're not going to say, well, if your ball cock's broken, you don't get that from a plumber. So why would you get it from a genealogist, whether it's genetic or otherwise? Like, just tell me what your issue is. I'll quote it accordingly, and then you can say yes or no. But I think people sort of still think that this is not, like I say, a profession. So therefore, there's your price list, and you can either take it or leave it.
Okay, Daniel, I think you're up for asking questions.
Yeah, there's many coming in, so we might be heading towards that 45-minute marker.
That's okay.
I know. It might even be longer. We don't know. Anyway, so from Casey Walls, have any of you been involved in military repatriation? That's such an interesting aspect to genealogy that I recently learned about.
I have not.
Me neither.
No, but I do know people that have. In fact, I'm actually looking at trying to get a speaking program together about military and how to research and repatriation. But I know Mags Goulden, she's another genetic genealogist, Cara, and she's in Canada. She's American actually originally, but she's based in Canada, and she's done that for, I'm fairly certain, 3, possibly even 4 years. Yeah, she's been working on that project for a long time, but no, personally, not for me.
I just thought of this. Doesn't Megan Smoleniak do that?
Yes.
I thought so. I was kind of thinking I could have sworn she did something similar.
Yes.
There you go. That's where the Americans are.
I know.
I also haven't been involved with this, but I do know that like there's some efforts going on in Canada to identify some unidentified military remains. So I haven't been involved in it, but I know that it is happening using investigative genetic genealogy.
There's a lot going on, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Wendy. She says, what was your driving force to continue when you were discouraged? Directed to any of you who'd like to answer.
I don't think I have been. I think I've had some challenges, but I don't think I've been massively discouraged. I mean, for anyone who wasn't in my talk earlier on, a lot of the work we do is air tracing, and it's very, how do I say this, cutthroat at times. But we've had a few challenges. We've had people that have reported us to the Advertising Standards Authority and just gone, oh, you know, you're sending out stuff that you shouldn't be. And we've won all the battles that we've had. So I think it's just kind of every single challenge that you have, just look at it and deal with it at the time. You know, there are some, there's always going to be challenges, whether you're doing genetic stuff or you know, genetic genealogy or whatever. And I think there's always going to be people, at least I spoke about this about it earlier, in terms of trolls and just kind of going, there are always going to be people that want to batter you down. Yeah, and I think it's just kind of going, okay, this was right or this wasn't, and if it wasn't, then changing what you did. So if you did something wrong, you know, for whatever reason, you know, if you made a bad decision, you know, made a bad choice, you know, did something that wasn't perhaps what you would do in the future, you just need to kind of change that up. But I think for me, it's just, yeah, it's making those decisions and just kind of changing it up and you know, just being resilient. I think that's my biggest advice. It's this industry, it's not regulated in the UK. Like I said earlier on, you know, a lot of people will find the same in whatever country you're in. You just need to be resilient, and if you do something wrong, sort it out and just make it better and make sure that you're doing the right thing. And yeah, I think just resilience for me.
I agree with that, and I can speak to a little bit of a specific example.
Okay.
So when I started out, you know, as a genealogy speaker, most of the time you answer, you know, calls for proposals and so on and so forth, and so you know you keep trying. So I just want to let you all know that it took me 14 years to get accepted to speak at NGS, National Genealogical Society. It took me 14 years. So talk about discouragement and persistence.
Wow.
But how I handled it was I actually spoke to somebody on the program committee, and I said, could you please tell me what I'm doing wrong with my proposals? Wow. Could you give me some tips? What advice can you give me? Because I've been trying, I've spoken here, I've spoken there, I have, you know, following, I've, you know, established myself. Finally, you know, I did, and I did get accepted. So I always call myself the Susan Lucci of, for those of you who don't know, she's a soap opera actress who never won an Emmy. And she went like 18 years without winning the Emmy. And I felt like, oh, I'm the Susan Lucci of genealogy because I never got to speak at NGS. But I finally did. And so you do, you know, it can be very discouraging, especially when you're starting out. And so, you know, you just have to, you know, keep trying, keep coming up with those ideas, you know, believe in yourself, and then just, you know, reach out to those who have done it successfully and just see where you can improve, and hopefully you will succeed. And I did. And I've done all the other conferences, and so, like I said, now I've gotten to the point where I can say, okay, I don't want to propose for NGS this year, and I didn't. So there you go.
I think that's a really good point, Lee. Sorry to jump in, but I think what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, discouragement, who cares? Just, we've had so many things. I didn't mention it in my talk earlier on, but I know I mentioned it sort of behind the scenes, but we've got some Google reviews from people that were absolute arses, pardon my French, but they, people that we had a really negative relationship with. We had to report to the police, all sorts of stuff, like serious stuff. And that could be discouraging. I've got a guy at the moment who we've been dealing with an estate for 8 years. We finally settled it, and now the guy that was supposed to benefit from the estate, there was a fraudulent will. He stole £82,000 from the deceased during his lifetime. It was pretty freaking serious. He's now going, I'm just going to plaster your name all over social media. He's being horrible to us and our solicitor. Do I care? I'm not bothered. It doesn't matter, because actually, what difference is he going to make in my life? And it's those bits of like, does it matter? I think, Lisa, you mentioned it earlier on. Like, does it matter? Does it matter to you? The trolls, as you said, does it matter? Is it going to influence your world? Move on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult when you're in that sort of, not public eye, but you're putting yourself out there. Does it matter? No. Move on.
And that's the other thing, Kirsty. I say, I put myself out there, and I always think, like, well, if you can do a better job, then you propose to Roots Tech next year. Then you or go ahead, propose something to Family Tree Magazine, and good luck to you.
Exactly. There's plenty of us in the industry. If they want somebody else, crack on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
I think you guys have identified a theme here, which is that sometimes there are haters. And when you are on social media, which is a big way that we all communicate with one another, it's a very small world. You're wants to see comments from people that are unfriendly or gatekeepy, or there's some stuff that's not nice. And in IGG, it's an even smaller world than I would say genealogy, and so there are some bitter rivalries in that world, and it can get really, sometimes when your head is in that, it's very discouraging and very upsetting, and it can be consuming. But my response to when that happens, and I start to feel really consumed by comments on the internet or arguments that are going on in the field, I usually have a weekend of just like hunkering down and doing casework, because that's what I'm really here for. I love the work. This is my hobby as well as my job. And when I have a really restorative weekend like that of just solving cases and giving people their names back and identifying, humans, that restores my passion and gives me what I need to keep going.
Yeah, and Lisa spoke about this earlier on, Karen. She mentioned like the trolls and stuff like that, and like how it can be really difficult. And I think lots of us have experienced that, obviously yourself included, and I think it's really difficult because, we've all come from different backgrounds, as we've all talked about today, myself, Lisa, Shannon and yourself, and we've come into this industry, but actually we all have feelings. You can't stop having those feelings. You can put them away and you can go, no, that's fine. But actually, someone going, Lisa mentioned earlier on, that somebody wasn't happy with the research or something that you'd put in a talk or something. And it's like, okay, you might not agree, but just deal with it in a sensible way. I think that's, when we're putting ourselves up there, whether it's, I've just seen someone's comment about, I'm so scared about public speaking. I was absolutely flaming petrified. The first talk I ever did, I kid you not, was about what to do with my research when I die, and I was 25. Like, why on earth did someone ask me to do that? Because the person who was about to not pop off the coil, was doing it before. But you know, that was my first talk, and I was petrified, absolutely petrified. You know, as someone said, what advice would you offer to help someone overcome the fear of public speaking? Rebecca, sorry, I just noticed your name in the chat there. I was absolutely petrified. So I got it. It was an in-person, and I was in my 20s, a long time ago. Let's not do the maths. But I was petrified about doing that because I didn't have a flaming clue what to do with my research when I died, because I'd only just started. And there I was standing up going, yeah, this is what I'm going to do when I die. But I did that talk, and it was a case of literally standing there and going, well, okay, what am I going to do? I'm in my 20s. I've just started out. What am I going to do? And I presented it, and it was fine. But I've surrounded myself by people, even in the physical room as it was back then. Now we're in the Zoom room. But I surrounded myself by people, with people that I knew would support me. And, you know, Daniel and I know PJ and I have done lots of prep beforehand, because obviously they're younger. PJ did loads and loads and loads of examples of like how to present and stuff like that, and asked me to look at them. Daniel, you've done the same. I can see you nodding in the corner. You know, they've presented at big shows, and we've done loads of stuff together. And I think it's just finding your corner, who is in your corner and can just go, actually, no, maybe do this or do that differently, and just being that listening ear, because it is scary as heck. It's so scary to just stand up or sit here and present, especially when you have a coffin fit in the middle. That was me. You know, and you just never know what's going to happen. So you just have to have those people that are in your corner to listen to, or even just look at your slides. I sent Daniel, even here I am, 45, sent you loads of slide images earlier on in the week, and just kind of went, here you go, what do you think?
Oh yeah, we were just kind of chatting, and she was sending me kind of examples of, oh, well, how does this look, or should I change something, or yeah. So it does work both ways. But I mean, I had done that with Kirsty, so I mean, I will admit.
I can add to something too. I'm sorry, Daniel, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, so yeah, that's a good strategy, Kirsty. Also, you know, just practice. And so you might want to start out, if you haven't done any present, this is an instance where you can do something for free. So join the Toastmasters if you have that in your area. We have that in the USA. Do a free webinar, or volunteer for your society, or like, you know, even the virtual genealogical society, you know, they do pay, but even you could volunteer for a local group or a local library. Just get a small audience and then test your presentation out. And then, you know, make adjustments based on feedback, constructive feedback. And then, you know, set yourself small goals. Like, okay, then I'm going to propose to, you know, the Ohio Genealogical Society, or then I'm going to try for the national, you know. So, you know, just build your confidence as you go, and, you know, and understand you're human, and none of us are perfect. We've all made blunders and errors and mistakes in our presentations.
100%.
And it's not the end of the world. You will survive. I've had every scenario you can possibly imagine happen to me as a public speaker, and I'm still here doing it. So you can do it.
I mean, I remember one of the first overseas, I think it was slightly after the Australian cruise ship tour I talked about, but I was invited to speak for Ontario. What is now Ontario Ancestors was OGS, Ontario Genealogical Society. And the first time they offered me an opportunity, they said, oh yeah, you can Zoom in. And I was like, no, sorry, I don't think you understand, I'm coming over. And I was like, no, that's fine, I'll pay my own way if you're not in a position to do that. And I rocked up and did a couple of talks, and I actually stepped in for somebody else whose talk was, I think she was supposed to speak and it didn't work out, but anyway, so I did a couple of bits. But that was the first time I'd actually spoken in Canada, and they were so impressed. I was actually booked to be their keynote the following year. So you have to do those, I'm doing it on my own dime. to use an Americanism, but you have to do those kind of, like, I think Lisa, you mentioned like doing things for free. You have to do those things so that they can see that you're good in what you do and that you're prepared to step up, so that then they'll actually book you. And you know, I was literally the keynote the next year. They didn't know me from Adam, whoever Adam is, but
Cool. What software or template do you like to use when you present trees to a client? You only get to choose one. Lisa?
Oh, I usually use Roost Magic.
Okay. Kirsty?
family historian.
Okay. And Karen?
Dryo, which is also called diagrams.net.
Okay. Cool.
Off the
I've
cuff-
only used
on the
one of
cuff
those,
there.
so I now have new stuff to try. Daniel, what do we have next?
Well, I'm just derailing the conversation in the chat, so don't mind me. So Karen Contrast, just curious if you did any certifications or if you stayed away from that, since writing is your top love or passion. That was during your talk, Lisa, so whether you want to go for that.
Just repeat that again, please.
Yeah, sure. Just curious if you did any certifications or if you stayed away from that, since writing is your top love or passion.
Yes. So yes, I made the decision not to pursue certification because my focus wasn't going to be client-based research. And I decided that I wanted to just do the writing and the education. And, somebody also asked, am I a certified lecturer? I haven't pursued that as well. As I said, I don't think negatively at all about pursuing certifications. I think there's a motivation factor, and everybody has to do whatever feels right for their career and their goals. For me at the time, it wasn't essential. And for right now where I am, I don't feel the need to have that. But everybody is different. So you should really just investigate what you feel will be best for your path.
Yeah.
Cool. Karen, do you want to address the public speaking question? We got the other two thoughts, but do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I was actually just typing to Rebecca too. So I just wanted, when I was in education, so actually I was a quality analyst nurse and was not doing a lot of public speaking at all. And I got offered a job in nursing education. And the reason why I took that job was because I felt like public speaking was my one weakness. And I knew that I'd be speaking all the time if I'm in education. And I'm so glad I did it. Even though I had almost no desire to go from quality to education, I'm so glad I did it, because if I wouldn't have gotten good at public speaking. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have learned how to develop curriculum and how to speak about genealogy. And so I'm really happy that I made that move and spent a lot of time being nervous in front of people before I finally got more comfortable. But still, I mean, I still am not great. As you guys saw, I went way fast today. I still do that a lot. I still have more difficulty with a live audience. And Rebecca, who asked that question, is in my class. So she knows that my boss, David, turns off his camera during class. That is partly because I told him I don't like to see his face because I'm worried that he's judging me while I'm presenting. So I'm still not great. So I still have weaknesses to overcome as a public speaker. So, just take every opportunity to grow your skills.
Your presentation was great. Like, don't criticize yourself for being too short. It was like we had the kind of 30-40 minutes window. So don't think, oh my gosh, it wasn't successful. I learned a huge amount from you today. So please don't think that you didn't do a good job. You really, really did.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was going to concur with that, because even though you might have done, less than the 40 minutes, the 40 minutes is just a timetable. It was just a guess, it was it was just a layout, a template, a layout.
Right.
You had to follow it. But, you do you, and that's the whole thing. So we've got, we'll try and zip through these so that we don't take up everyone's day, evening, morning, whatever time it may be for people. Erin Cassidy, how is it getting paid jobs to work on cases for police? Do they want more, do they more want certifications? Karen, I believe.
Well, so you're kind of like bringing up a thing that's a challenge right now in the field. So right now there is no certification for investigative genetic genealogy. I think that there will be in the future, and there are at least 2 different groups that are trying to develop accreditation or certification for the practice of investigative genetic genealogy. One challenge is that I'm not sure, and I don't blame them at all, police don't know what they're looking for when it comes to an IGG practitioner. They don't know what questions they should be asking. They don't know how to judge the ethical practice of an IGG practitioner. And pretty much anyone could be like a charlatan and just kind of pretend that they know what they're doing and present themselves as an expert in IGG. And because you wouldn't know what questions to vet them, you might end up with a charlatan working to solve your IGG case. And it's very, very, very scary. It scares me because if you consume the DNA sample that's available for a suspect in a violent crime and you lose that specimen because they sent it to the wrong lab or they did the wrong kind of test, that's terrifying to me. So I'm really concerned about that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm happy that there are groups trying to create an accrediting body. As for getting paid by the police, I think I already answered that a little bit earlier that it's hard to find paid work. So having knowledge of fundraising, grant writing, and working for, there are even investigators that are police investigators that have learned investigative genetic genealogy so that they can use it on their own cases in addition to the traditional investigative techniques that they're using.
I think the same is true in terms of working with the police, in terms of just tracing people. It's like the whole people finding stuff, which is like, I don't do anything near what you do, Karen, but in terms of just like tracing people, I had a case probably about 6 years ago where it was actually a friend of mine, because I used to live in Reading in Berkshire, which is like about 50 miles away from where I am right now. And a friend of mine who was connected with him said, oh my gosh, you won't believe it, Mick's been found drowned in the river. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's like a mutual friend. And I connected with the police and they were super surprised that anybody in the genealogy field would help them. And I was like, but that, we need to help you because you need to find his family. And I did it for free. Like I didn't charge anything. Don't do anything for free. But I did it for free because it was a friend of a friend of a friend. But yeah, they were just like, oh my gosh, we didn't realize that people like you existed. So probably the same for you, Karen, in terms of like people don't know that you exist, and therefore, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who are the ones to trust and who not to trust.
Fantastic. Karen, terrific presentation. That was your comment from Kelsey, and then she asked a question. It gave me some hope as a person without any previous genealogical education. Is the DNA Doe project always looking for volunteers, or is there another way you'd recommend to volunteer and gain experience?
Okay, so DNA Doe project is pretty hard to get into now. I showed you guys at the beginning of my presentation how I got in. It took me one email. Back then, there were a handful of volunteers and 2 people leading the organization. Now there are, like 8 or 9 members of the management team, over 80 genetic genealogists on the volunteer teams,
wow.
And probably over 1,000 applications for genetic genealogists. So I would be lying if I said like, sure, like they'll take you, it's easy to get in. And I get asked the question a lot, why not have as many people as possible? Well, because there's a structure in place and you can't just bring in 1,000 volunteers and just add that randomly to cases. So it would be impossible to manage a team that large. Also, we're working with sensitive information, so you can't just add people without vetting them. So there are a few different ways to get in. Educational programs include, there's a what used to be called the apprentice program, but it's now called the practicum. Typically, it's been run in the summer and the winter. I have to say I am not 100% sure what will happen since I'm leaving that role, but I imagine that a person will take my place and continue running those programs. And how that works is you take an exam for genetic genealogy principles applied to investigative cases, And the people that get the best scores on that exam are usually the ones that get into the practicum. Similarly, they have a partnership with University of New Haven. Usually there's a few people that, there's a lot of people that apply for the internship with DNA Dope Project. That's usually at the end of the summer. And again, the people with the highest scores on the exam are the ones that get those coveted internship spots. And sometimes people in both of those programs go on to become volunteers with DDP. Other opportunities, of course, I have to shout out my own program that I teach. If you guys have questions about it, Rebecca is in the chat. You can ask her about what it's like to be in the program. That allows you to work on real IGG cases. And I believe that most of the students will probably stay on and continue volunteering on some of the cases that they're working on now, in person and online. So that's another opportunity. And those are the ones that I can think of offhand. I'm not sure if I answered the question. So Sarah, let me know if I did.
I think you did. I think you answered it great. I have a similar question, so you covered mine. So I'm going to hope that hers got answered too. If you do not feel she answered the question, message me and we can ask it a different way. Daniel, I don't see any more questions, but I might be missing a few. Do you see more?
I've got 3 on mine.
Oh, awesome. Mine must just not be uploading. So you ask away.
Okay. Oh, well, it might have not shown up because you dropped out a couple of times. I don't know. Okay, anyway, next one. Again, this kind of touch base, but again, quick answer. Tammy Faulkner, what genealogy program do you recommend? Kirsty?
Program in terms of what?
I would assume software.
I think we've already done that one, haven't we? In terms of
actually,
yeah. If it's a program in terms of like certification or stuff like that, I really have nothing to add on that, because as I said in my presentation earlier on, I'm not a massive fan of like, any particular program of like certification or courses or modules or stuff like that. I think just having as much educational base as you can, and also just like teaching yourself, is great. So I don't have anything to add on that one.
Now, unfortunately, there's one question here that would have probably been directed at Shannon, but
yes,
the fact that I think the thunderstorm or the storm has taken at her.
I think it has, yeah.
She might be able to answer this. So we might be able to do that one.
Is it the one about blogging?
No, it's the BYU one.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the BYU program right now. What is the question?
Oh, 1 second. I just added it to the answered tab here. I have.
If you could please express if you feel BU, I think she means BYU, then ProGen was the right order, or if you would have changed your order of completion. I've done the pre-BU course and absolutely loved it, but I'm second guessing doing the BU course before more experience, or just bite the bullet and do it. Wondering what is the best course of action to do before BU, which I'm assuming she means BYU.
No. BU means Boston University. Karen, didn't you go there? Or am I mixing up my people?
Not me. I haven't taken any formal program.
Okay.
Suzanne has said she can answer it.
Yeah. So I'm the vice president of the Association of Professional Genealogists, which is a global organization. I've been through the 7-week BU course. I've been through the 15-week BU course, and I've been through the 18-month ProGen course. And that is the order in which they normally are, that you normally go through. Brigham Young University has their own certificate program, but it's only available through Idaho. It's not available unless you are a matriculated student in Salt Lake. So that is, it's the other one. There are tremendous number of opportunities for education, and they come out of Australia, they come out of the United States, they come out of Great Britain, mostly. And you can go as sophisticated as going through a Strathclyde master's program and PhD program that they offer. AGRA, I think, has a certification program as well, out of London. So there's a myriad of different things. What I counsel everyone is the best US $49 you can spend. It's for legacy family tree webinars, because you can watch those webinars on your own time frame. And they are all the masters in genealogy, whether you're talking about Elizabeth Shown Mills, that focuses on documentation and citations, whether it's Tom Jones, who focuses on methodology and the prescription of producing reports and writing for genealogy. They are all doing 1-hour webinars on legacy family tree webinars. So,
or even Daniel Loftus or Kirsty Gray or probably Lisa Alzo too.
I didn't end up doing mine. I didn't.
Oh no.
I had to cancel.
Okay, well, me and Lisa definitely.
Yeah, we've done it.
The topic
Yeah.
I was going to do it on ended up being outdated in the space of about a month. So I was not going to be.
Anyways,
Yeah.
the rest of us.
Anyway,
In case-
Kirsty, you've Lisa, they're on it. So,
and Casey says it's about $25 during Christmas time.
Yeah.
Actually, if you do it the day after the US Thanksgiving, that's when it's knocked down the most. Black Friday. So the US Thanksgiving is the 4th Thursday in November. That Friday directly after is the best time to buy anything that's coming out of the United States. But
Okay,
that's what
Daniel.
I would recommend.
yeah.
What are our other 2 questions?
Well, that was one of them.
This one.
Oh, okay.
The Boston University one, which Suzanne thankfully gratefully answered for us. And the last one, again, I could probably answer this, but anyway, is Judy Hunstead Minka, is genealogy blogging a good income stream or worth doing?
Worth doing, yes. Income stream, no.
I second that.
It's
Unless you really hustle.
yeah, it's great in terms of putting yourself out there. When I first got into genealogy full time, I was told by my webmaster at the time, who designed my website and stuff like that, blog every day. Holy moly, that was a long couple of years. Sometimes I was there at 10 to midnight going, oh my gosh. It was challenging, but it's good in terms of getting yourself out there. It's going to get your promotion and your credibility and recognition and your reputation. Does it earn you money? No.
You can earn, oh, I'm sorry. You can earn little dribs and drabs too. I mean, you can, if you want to be an affiliate for places, you can do that, but it's not, unless you're really high level blogging, it's not like a sustainable income stream. Yeah. No. Go ahead, Karen. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No, that's okay. I'll just say I notice people that blog. So in that, it could pay dividends if that, when I think about a person that I want to connect to another person because I know that they're knowledgeable about a certain topic, and maybe that will lead to a job for them. That it's a form of putting yourself out there, and it's a form of networking. So in that sense, it could be an income stream, and that it gets. But I can't speak to whether the blog earns you money, but certainly it's a way of putting yourself out there and networking.
Yeah, just people knowing that you're there.
And Jonathan just actually commented saying podcasts have become more popular to blogs to some audiences. I do agree with that. And this is not I will actually mention one prime example is a podcast called Chasing Hazel's Tales. It's the story of 2 cousins who work together on a podcast to basically tell the story of, I think it's their grandmother, but it's about a woman called Hazel and their family. I've yet to catch up in it. I'm trying to, but it's one example of what you could do if you didn't necessarily want to blog. If you wanted to kind of tell the story yourself, through the medium of voice instead of typing on a keyboard. That's also another option too. But apart from that, we've answered them. So
fantastic.
I know. So I think that might be our cue to wrap up. So thank you everyone so much for coming to our Careers Day. We hope you all gained something from it, and all of you at home who will be watching this later, I hope. So without further ado, I shall stop the recording.